Picture a massive, towering tree out in a wild forest. Deep roots gripping the earth, branches reaching way up to catch the bright sun. Now picture a bonsai. It is exactly the same plant. Seriously, no genetic tricks, no special dwarf species. It's literally just living its life in a tiny bowl. That's actually what the word bonsai means. It translates to planted in a container. It all started ages ago when these Chinese nature lovers basically decided they wanted to bring the wild, rugged mountains right up to their front doors. So they started planting these perfect little trees in bowls. They called this ancient Chinese art penjing. Eventually, traveling monks spotted these tiny trees and just fell totally in love with the idea, bringing it all the way back to Japan. The Japanese monks completely embraced it, but they decided to grow them in these very plain, simple pots. They really just wanted the trees to radiate this pure, quiet peace. They started carefully snipping away anything that looked messy or out of place, perfectly shaping what we now know as modern bonsai. And the crazy thing is, there are no magic seeds involved here. None. You can literally just use a normal pine cone seed or even a regular seed from an apple you ate for lunch. The real magic is entirely in the daily care. You take that totally normal seed and you put it in a tiny pot with barely any soil. Out in the wild, that tree wants to get huge, right? It wants to stretch its roots super deep into the earth and drink gallons of water. But here, the pot physically stops those roots from stretching out. It's kind of like squeezing your feet into a pair of perfectly snug vintage boots. You definitely stop growing outward, but man, you get incredibly tough. The tree realizes it can't stretch, so it just adapts, settling in and deciding to stay small.
But it definitely doesn't just stay that way on its own. The person growing the tree is an artist, and they step in with these super sharp scissors. They go right in and actually cut the long roots. I know that sounds a little intense, but it doesn't hurt the plants at all. It just creates these really healthy, thick, short roots, keeping the tree small but super vibrant. And while the tree is stubbornly trying to push up a tall trunk, the artist is right there carefully trimming away the fresh new green leaves on the top branches. Because of all that clipping at the top, the tree starts growing wide instead of tall. The trunk gets beautifully thick, and those branches start looking exactly like an ancient forest tree. Sometimes, to really capture that wild, weathered look, the artist uses this soft metal wire. They know that out in nature, trees get totally bent out of shape by fierce, heavy winds. So they wrap this wire around a branch and gently, carefully bend it down, securing it in a brand new shape.
And then you just wait. Months pass by so incredibly slowly. But as the tree grows, it actually forms new wood right around that curve. When the artist finally takes the wire off, the branch just stays bent forever. It looks exactly like the wind pushed it down during some ancient storm and just held it there. It makes this tiny tree look so remarkably old and strangely brave, just standing there holding its own against invisible elements. Honestly though, keeping one of these is a pretty tough job. Because that pot is so ridiculously small, it dries out fast. That means you have to water it every single day. There are no days off. A dry tree will die on you so fast if you weren't paying close attention. You've got to fiercely protect it from the blazing hot sun on a summer afternoon, and then turn right around and protect it all over again from freezing winter ice. It's completely trapped in that little pot, you know? It relies entirely on the artist for its survival. And because of that total dependency, the artist ends up learning this extreme level of patience. You absolutely cannot rush a tree. It does things on its own slow time. You're just sitting there, waiting years and years just to see any visible changes. Some of these trees, the ones that have been cared for with that kind of deep generational patience, become famous worldwide. They live in these special museums where millions of people travel just to see them. There's this one famous pine tree that lived in Japan during a truly terrible war. It actually survived a huge, devastating bomb simply because it was sitting quietly, tucked away, safe behind a tall wall. That brave tree is still alive today. It's centuries old, and the family who cared for it gave it to a museum as a symbol of peace. It's wild to think about, but a bonsai can live way, way longer than a person. Passed down carefully from grandparents to grandchildren. It's exactly like inheriting a beautiful, priceless vintage watch from your grandfather. Only this watch is actually alive, and instead of just winding it, you care for it every single day. When it gets passed down, a brand new artist takes over all that hard work. They spend time to studying the old tree, learning all its little quirks to keep it alive. And when you stand in front of a beautiful bonsai, it kind of just makes you feel perfectly quiet inside. It looks like this giant, wild tree you'd spot far away on a horizon, but it's sitting right there in front of you. The real trick is, it has to look completely natural. You should never actually see the artist's work, it just looks wildly undisturbed. You'll see them in all these different styles too. Sometimes you'll spot one that looks like a round broom, where all the branches are pointing beautifully upward, like an open fan. And then you'll see another style that just falls right over the edge of the pot. That one's called a cascade style, and it gives you the total vibe of a stubborn tree clinging for dear life to a steep cliffside. Sometimes artists get super creative and plant a bunch of trees together in one wide pot, so you're basically looking at a tiny green forest. You can even make them out of fruit trees, which is amazing because the apples that grow on those little branches are actually normal sized. Or they'll use trees that bloom, so suddenly you have this tiny tree just beautifully covered in big, gorgeous pink flowers. It's such a funny, lovely surprise when you see it in person. But no matter what kind of tree it is, there is an absolute rule of balance. Everything has to match perfectly. If you have this thick, strong tree, you need a heavy pot to hold it down visually and physically. And what goes inside isn't just regular soft dirt you dig up from your backyard garden. It's special. They use these baked clay rocks instead. They use those clay rocks because they let the water drain out super fast. See, the roots don't just need water, they actually need air for deep breathing. And wet, soggy dirt will just rot those tiny roots right away. Plus, because a tiny pot has literally zero natural nutrients, the artist has to feed the tree these special liquid fertilizer drops just to keep it thriving. And of course, bugs will inevitably try to attack the tiny tree. The artist has to constantly watch the leaves up close, and when pests show up, they gently clean the leaves using these tiny, incredibly soft brushes. It's very hands-on, meticulous work. Then, every few years, the tree needs a new bed. The artist will gently pull the whole tree out and place it into a clean, fresh pot. This keeps the tree incredibly strong because it gives the roots fresh, empty space to stretch out a little and trigger new leaves to grow. Honestly, think about how it feels to strip off a heavy, restrictive winter coat after a long day and just slide right into crisp, fresh, cool sheets. That's exactly what fresh space feels like to these roots. People all over the world grow these now. You don't need a huge, sprawling yard. Just a sunny little balcony will totally do. It's this wonderfully quiet hobby that really helps people just let go of their loud, stressful days. Sure, you can grab a cheap pre-made tree at a store, but a true bonsai is an exercise in personal training. You have to put in the time yourself, patiently. It forces you into this beautifully slow pace. You really learn that you just cannot force a green leaf open. You give it water, and you wait, quietly. And sometimes it just breaks your heart a little. A branch will die for no clear reason. But instead of giving up, the artist accepts the sad loss and turns it into something beautiful. They carefully peel the bark off that dead branch so the bare white wood just shines right out in the sun. It becomes this striking badge of honor, showing the world that this tree is a strong survivor, proving bonsai is a constantly changing, living form that is never truly finished. But if you ignore it, that careful shape is gone in a flash. It'll just revert right back into a messy, wild bush, and that special magic disappears forever. Because the magic doesn't live in the dirt or the leaves, it's born every single day in the space between the human and the plant, working together to create this beautiful living picture. It's honestly kind of wonderful. You are holding an entire forest right in your two hands. You get to watch the seasons change up close, and you just feel deeply connected to the earth. The tree trusts you with its survival, and you trust the tree with your free time. It becomes this quiet, solid green friendship. We build all these massive, noisy cities everywhere, but this tiny tree brings the wild forest right back to us. It makes you wonder, can that kind of constant care, that ridiculously slow growth, actually bring you deep peace? It's like a daily promise to nature. We give it life, and it gives us quiet. Hey, if you enjoyed wandering through this little green world with me, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button, share this with someone who could use a little peace in their day, and subscribe for more. Catch you next time.